I worked for 10 years in
okay.
tech. I was in an investment bank. I stumbled upon this tool called Photoshop. I thought it met maybe because our experience in shooting weddings gives a slightly different perspective on fashion. Yeah, I'll take. Kehti, okay, I want to take a photograph with my chudi and my face is seen. I can't take that.
The iconic Nykaa Wali Shaadi.
It was a learning experience.
Welcome to the Wedding Podcast Season 2. Some tell stories with words. He tells them with lights. Wind blowing wheels, that fleeting glance, and the breath with stillness. His frames feel less like photographs and more like memories you wish you could live in forever. From iconic celebrity weddings to fashion films that moved millions, he's redefined what wedding storytelling looks like. This mind behind the house on the clouds, Siddharth Sharma. Welcome to the Wedding Podcast. I love doing these. Welcome to the Wedding Podcast.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor to be here. Finally feel like I've achieved something.
I feel like we've achieved something. I was so keen to have you in season 1. We spoke about it very, very briefly. And but I know it's been a very crazy and hectic season for you.
Yeah.
And for me. And but I kept shooting in spite of that somehow or the other because I had to. But thank you so much for making the time and being here.
Pleasure.
And now to begin with, Sid, you've spent so much time, with these dreamy, perfectly framed moments. And I'd like to understand what's the psyche behind a photographer. Like, are you like a regular person, like how we all are with blurry pictures on our phone and, we take these pictures wherever we feel there's a moment, or is it very different for you?
It's the same actually. I think when I'm not doing this professionally, I'm as regular as anybody else. So if you see my phone, it will be full of a random shot, maybe a shot of coffee cups. Most of the shots are of my daughters.
I know.
But I don't usually take a lot of photos after I'm done shooting. So I'm not like that kind of a photographer who carries his camera everywhere. Surprisingly, I don't like shooting once, like especially if I'm traveling, if I see a sunset, I'll not pull out my phone and take a photo.
Yeah, that's exactly what like. Is that like usually the psyche of any other regular person would be, you see a beautiful moment, you see a sunset, you want to take a click,
Yeah, but surprisingly, even though I'm a photographer, if I see a nice sunset, I'll just sit and watch it. I don't pull out my phone to take photograph of sunsets.
You just want to be in the moment and enjoy.
Yeah, because as part of our job, we shoot so much and we shoot a lot. In a year, we shoot a lot of weddings. So sometimes, it's I like to give time to just observe. A lot of times, when you're doing things professionally, you see such beautiful visuals and you have to capture.
Yeah.
And in that process, sometimes you miss the experience of watching.
Because at that time you're so caught up. It's your work.
Yeah, because you're watching on the screen.
Correct.
And especially when I'm traveling and especially when I'm with my friends, I usually do not pull out my phone and take any photo. No selfies. I don't take selfies. I don't take sunset shots. Very, very rarely. Sometimes if I'm going somewhere and I have a lot of time, I might shoot something, but it's rare.
And do you carry your camera for all your holidays?
No? I do not carry my camera at all. Most of the time I just and even my family complain that you're a photographer and you hardly take any photograph of the family itself. But it's just that I just prefer not to use a professional camera for. I think a phone camera is enough for those moments. So I don't carry.
So taking back, you started in this tiny room in the US and where I don't think that time, I believe you did not think of photography as your career.
Yeah.
And how did it all begin? Like, what's your journey and story? Give us a little, let us just go back into those times.
See, I've been a nerd throughout my life. Even when I was in college, I was a geek. And I went to US. I was a geek. I was a nerd. And somewhere I stumbled upon this tool called Photoshop.
Okay.
And I started learning that while sitting in my room in US. I learned a lot because I found it very fascinating.
And what were you doing in the US? Were you studying?
I was in IT. So I worked for 10 years in tech. I was in an investment bank. I was enjoying that a lot. I had no plans to come back to India. I wanted to settle in US.
Yeah.
But yeah, in US during winters, it used to get dark after 5. So once you come back home, it's dark. So there was not much to do outdoors wise. So you have to, either you go to friend's place or you stay in your room. And I had this, I started this thing about learning Photoshop. And photography happened after that because I wanted photos to Photoshop. So that is where my interest in photography started, because I want to do Photoshop, but I need images to do Photoshop. So I bought a camera. I wanted to take some photos of my, my friend's kid. I bought a camera for that, and then I used to Photoshop those images. And that's how I initially started.
How interesting is that? And did you do like a formal training or something after that? No?
Formal training as in all YouTube videos.
Oh, wow.
Like, and at that time, I think YouTube was also not very, it was just coming. I think it was not very mainstream. So whatever was available on, internet, I used to search and watch and learn. And I think 2 or 3 years I did this. Just on my own, in my own room, I used to take my own photos.
That switch, that one moment when you know that, okay, now I'm so ready for this that I want to do this like full time. I want to take this on as my calling.
It took a lot of time.
Yeah.
Because I was doing a different kind of photography. This was more conceptual and more leisure, because there was no deadline, nothing. It was just whenever you get time, you go out and shoot, and that's it. Full time, though, it was never in my in my head, because I was very, very happy with my job. I was enjoying life, to be very honest. It was so much fun in US. The work was good. My role in the company was very good. The company itself was very good. So I was very, very happy. The switch came when I came back to India. I had to come back to India.
You had to. For some other reasons.
Yeah, for some other reasons. I had, my girlfriend, now my wife, she wanted to come back.
Oh, that's a good call.
Yeah, so then you're not left with many options. Yeah. So either you come back or you find another girlfriend. So I chose to come back, and I came back, and I think the change happened when I came back.
Okay.
And that adjustment from, the work culture in US and in India, it was a bit difficult for me. So I was not able to adjust, because I went to US just after my college. So I didn't have a lot of, experience of the Indian way of working. And when I came back to Bangalore from US, I'm from Delhi, but my offshore from the company was Bangalore. So I came back to Bangalore, a new city for me. And the work, the position that I had, the work I had, it was not there anymore.
Yeah.
So I think at that time I started to explore that, okay, what else can I do?
Okay.
Because this is not exactly
It's a very circumstantial shift that has happened, but great, we got lucky as a wedding industry.
Very circumstantial, actually.
Yeah. And you're in a happy place now.
Oh, now it's a happy place.
Yeah.
Actually, I was always in a happy place.
You're a happy person, a happy soul.
I've not been throughout my life, I've not been in struggling or unhappy phase.
Yeah.
Even when I started, I was happy. So now obviously I'm happy, but I've always been, happy only. I've never faced any struggles as such. I've not faced professionally, personally. My life has been very smooth.
That's probably because you're a happy person.
I don't know about that, but
I think it's like that, because you're a happy person, you're a happy soul, you're you're chill about life, and that's why things happen for you. When people take stress and are constantly worried about what's next is when things change.
I do take stress, but
you do?
I take a lot of stress.
Work stress ever?
Work stress.
Yeah.
It has been a stressful journey, because obviously you will also know
space,
wedding is it's a it's a bit different kind of a word. So it can get stressful. But again, it was more of like a happy stress. Like good to have that kind of stress. I always believe if you're not stressed, you're not growing.
Yeah.
I always, even at the start, I used to believe
that little push is needed.
You need to have some level of stress to push you forward professionally.
Yeah.
Because when I was in IT, I had no stress. No stress at all. So I never I never even expected promotion also. I was so happy. No stress, nothing. Super cool life, chill. I used to play every day. So I never grew as such professionally in terms of career growth, but I was happy in that space. But the moment I started taking stress of the profession, I started growing.
Wow.
So some level of stress I feel is important.
So taking one step back again, when you came back to Bangalore and you decided that through circumstances you're going to explore this, and you decided it's going to be photography that you're getting into as a full-time thing. Was it a planned move that it's going to be weddings, or was it that fashion or, couture photography? What exactly was on your mind? Like, this is a very important thing I'd want a lot of our listeners who are beginners in the space and at that point or dilemma where, what should I do? Can I take this plunge? Should I not? I think it really is a story that always helps them decide and take the next step.
According to me, I think it was a very calculated plunge. It was not like a decision I took over a party
over a shot of tequila.
Okay, tomorrow I'm going to leave. So it was not like that.
Yeah.
It was a very, very well calculated, and I think a lot actually. Even now I think a lot. I plan a lot. So it was a very calculated move, and I gave good time. I had set certain milestones to achieve. So if I achieve certain milestone, only then I'm gonna leave my job and go to it. It was not like, okay, I'm gonna...
And these were financial milestones?
See, I come from a very middle class family. So financial milestones for me is number one, before any personal passion and all that. So I kept the financial milestones as number one priority. So I wanted to achieve certain kind of freedom in terms of what I want to do and who I want to shoot. Like for example, in weddings, I wanted to achieve freedom of selection.
Wow.
Like I wanted to do certain kinds of weddings only.
Yeah.
And to do that, you need to achieve certain financial freedom where you should have that power to say no.
Yeah.
So I had kept that milestone that, okay, once I achieve that, then I'll leave my job and go full time. That was my personal milestone. Plus a financial milestone of I wanted to make 2 times more money I was making in my current profession. And surprisingly, I achieved that milestone a month before my own wedding.
Yeah, I mean, that's another story I want to dive into. I believe you started wedding photography just...
No, not started. I started quite early.
Okay.
But I was doing both. I was doing my
job
well. And on weekends I used to go and shoot weddings.
Okay.
And obviously I was doing well. I started well, surprisingly. I think I was a bit lucky there that I got a good start initially. And the milestone I had in my mind was that I should be making 2 times more money than my current profession. The day I make it, I'll leave. And the day came a month before my own wedding.
Oh, wow.
It was in October and I resigned.
Yeah.
And you give 1 month notice period, and my 1 month notice period got over 2 days before my own wedding. So I was actually technically jobless at my own wedding, and even to the extent that whenever
you weren't jobless, you were an entrepreneur by then.
So at that time, my brain, I felt like
especially
jobless.
Especially when you're in a service segment. Yeah. Then business seems like, oh, will I make it? Will I not make it?
Also, in my whole family, pure khandan, nobody has ever done business. We are all, service. My dad,
my background's a bit like that too.
Yeah. So for me to even think of leaving a proper settled, well-going career
the
path.
Monthly income.
Yeah, and it was decent. It was decent. Not like it was decent income, and to leave that and get to such uncertain kind of a profession. At that time, it was very uncertain.
Yeah.
Now it's very mainstream, but at that time, it was not considered also to be. Even doing few weddings, I had to rethink a lot of times that am I doing this correct? Am I in the right profession? But it just came that, you know, my milestone, I reached my milestone a month before I resigned. And on the day of my own wedding, when people were asking, what do you do? I was like confused. And like what to say, that technically I'm jobless and I'm a wedding photographer. And I was confused whether to say I'm a wedding photographer, that's even worse than saying jobless. So I said, no, I'm an engineer. I work for this company still. So it was confusing because wedding photographer as such was not something that you can, especially you can tell your in-laws proudly at that time.
You feel so?
I felt so then.
Then
it was a bit, because the weddings I was doing were very, very, you know, small, in villages, you know, in UP, some village, and in Karnataka, in some villages in Karnataka. So I was doing all those kind of weddings, and there, no matter how well you dress, you're still a photographer, and you'll be treated like a photographer, and they have not seen, they don't know how else to treat a photographer. If they want a photograph, they'll say, hey, photographer, come take a photo. So that was the thing. And I am, you know, I've never faced such, I've never been in a situation where somebody's telling me, hey, Dara, a photo le hamari. And I was like, damn, is this the right profession? Like, no, I don't want to do this. Like, why, you know, I was in US, I was, you know, such.
So first few days were tough, or first few projects
First few weddings, actually. I sort of gave up almost after each wedding.
Really?
Yeah. I came back and I told my friends, okay, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this. What am I doing, going all the way and, you know, taking photographs. But somehow, I think maybe my circle, the friends that I had,
they supported
my
you
girlfriend,
and pushed you.
Yeah, my girlfriend, she was from business background, and she sort of told me that, you know, this is how it is when you're starting a business, it takes time.
Yeah.
But for me, it was like I just go back to my own thing. It's a comfortable job, 9 to 5. But first few months, first year I would say, was
tough.
Bit of a dilemma, bit of a, you know, thinking, rethinking. But I think I got over it after 1 year.
Who shot your wedding?
My own team.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, my own.
They did?
Yeah, I don't remember anything from my own wedding.
Really?
I have no memory of my own wedding. I was actually speaking to Vishal also.
You were very preoccupied, I think, with all this happening and the change happening. And
I actually delivered a wedding film a day before my own wedding.
Okay.
I was working. I actually, you know, I took the computer on my own wedding day. It was in a hotel, and I took the computer there. I placed it, and in my room I put it all the, you know, setup, and I was editing.
Oh.
So a night before my own wedding, I was editing, and I delivered a film just a day before my own wedding. And so yeah, it was.
Tell me, I have a question. In this first year of it being tough for you, every time you worked on the edits of these 2-3 projects that you did, which obviously are your early projects, did you feel like proud of yourself? This is my work and I don't want to give up. Other than, of course, the push that you got from your friends and wife and.
Yeah, actually, that's probably the reason why I continued, because I was very happy. Even though I'm a very, you know, socially awkward person. I don't know how to act in a social environment.
I've seen you.
So I don't know what to say.
You can't have a conversation more than 10 minutes, especially when you're meeting strangers. I've seen that.
I don't know if I'm meeting a stranger, I don't know what to talk about.
Yeah.
So I am a very socially, you know, awkward person, and to put myself in the middle of hundreds of strangers, and you have to talk to them, obviously. So initially, yes, it was a bit tough, but somehow, somewhere I felt involved. I don't know, even though I was not talking too much, but still I felt like people are appreciating your presence, that you are present in that place and sort of you are an important person. So I found it very, you know, because when you're working in an IT company, like there are hundreds of people, and the appreciation you get is usually scarce and after a long time. But there you are appreciated like
immediately
and in front of a lot of people. You know, there was a wedding I did in Bangalore in the first year. where I finished and I was walking out, my whole team, 2-3 people, and the whole wedding crowd stood up and clapped for us.
Oh wow!
And the wedding was still going on, like it was just, it finished, and I walked, and the whole 200 people stood up and clapped. I was walking out, and it felt like, then you feel like, okay, you are not, you're doing something good only.
Actually, I personally also feel that, I mean, we are in this space where it is very stressful. It can be very demanding on you. It can be very draining. But the reward that you feel at the end of every project, when you see the family, the couple, it's very rewarding. I mean, you somehow feel, I sometimes have a void after every wedding, because we talk so much. As a planner, we are involved so much that we feel that there's something amiss now.
True, actually, because also, and also one of the reasons why I'm socially awkward also, that you go to a wedding, you spend so much time with the couple, so there is an invisible kind of an attachment, which you can't express, like, oh yeah, like, oh I love you so much, all that. You cannot do to a couple, but there is, because you've been observing people so closely, you have seen them laugh, you have seen them cry, what can make them cry to that point, because your camera is on them, you're waiting for that, tear, that smile. And when you do that, you sort of know a lot about them, more than even what, more than what is required also. You know that, you know them personally, you feel a personal connect with them. And then you pack your bags, come back, and then you move on to the next. I found it a bit mentally, draining initially. That, because the bonds sometimes are very deep. Initially, the bonds are very deep. Like, we used to, for each client, we used to go out and, spend time, because it was Bangalore. And when more and more clients, started coming, I found that, that emotional stuff to be, that may be even more socially awkward maybe.
To create that balance and to try and feel, okay, now, you feel that they're becoming friends, but at the same time they are clients. And you got to keep that boundary. It's a very thin boundary. I know what you mean, because it happens where even we very deeply feel that this has now become like a family. But the wedding finishes and we move on. Of course, we're connected and we meet socially at times, but doesn't happen with all of them. You've done a lot of celebrity weddings, that's where somewhere House on the Clouds just became like a name with, I think today every bride has this on her wish list, which is brilliant. And I think kudos to the way you'll have achieved it. And I also feel the work that you all do, every frame has a story to say. Everything is so unique. Everything has so much depth, How did the first one happen? Tell us that story, and which was the first one?
See, we had done actually celebrity weddings before also, but...
Which was the breakthrough moment?
Breakthrough was Alia-Ranbir's wedding. If you have to, because it was the... even though we shot Love Ranjan's wedding, he's a director.
Which was before that?
It was just before that, but the breakthrough moment for us was Alia-Ranbir's wedding. And that sort of changed a lot for us, and in general also for us as a team, us as people also, it changed a lot of, and we knew that it's coming when we figured out that we are shooting Alia-Ranbir's wedding.
How did it happen? How did that call come? Who called you? Tell us the process, how you got it.
See, we shot her best friend's wedding, Meghna.
Oh yeah. So the one which happened in Ahmedabad, I think.
No. Mumbai only.
In Bombay.
Mumbai. Okay. I think it was just few months before her wedding.
Okay.
In December, we shot Meghna's wedding, and in April we shot Alia's wedding. So it was very, just before we shot Meghna's wedding, and at that wedding, I had, a brief interaction with Alia. How it came, I don't know. Because celebrity weddings, how is very tough to find out. I never asked also, I never sat with Alia. Alia, tell me how.
No, but obviously she saw your work at her friend's wedding. And,
and I think, I don't know about if it's true or not. I think because a lot of her events, Meghna's events, a couple of events were in her apartment. Because a lot of weddings you don't see a lot of photographs shot inside an apartment.
Yes.
And since Alia's wedding was supposed to happen in her own apartment, I think that might be possibility that because it's easier to shoot
it's not easy to shoot in a tight space
and still trying to figure out the moments
and get the best shots.
So I don't know, I've never spoken with Meghna or Alia, but I think that could be one of the reasons. But exact reason, no one knows. But yeah, I mean that was the obvious, because I'm assuming she might have liked the photos.
And then you did, I think, Parinidhi's, and you did Kiara.
Yeah, Kiara.
Kiara and Sidharth.
Yeah,
which was a very beautiful wedding again.
Yeah, I mean, most of the wedding people are so beautiful. So obviously, and it's not just about celebrities. Like they are celebrities.
Other couples.
Yeah, I mean they are.
I mean, all your work. Honestly, your page is a delight to watch.
Oh, thank you.
And coming to couples, celebrity versus regular couples. Every couple likes storytelling. Everybody wants their story to be translated today. And can you just tell us that one story which you feel that the couple's involvement made you work differently? Either they were demanding or they had ideas which you probably did not think of, or whatever.
I mean, see, every couple, they, at the core of all the weddings, the core expectation is they want moments to be captured beautifully. That is, and that is the same with whether it's a celebrity, whether it's a non-celebrity. Most of the discussions that we had with our brides or even celebrity brides, more or less it's exactly the same. So their expectation is just beautiful moments. In celebrities, sometimes the importance of moments is slightly takes the higher priority. And in normal weddings, the portraits also have a certain but in celebrity, when the portraits are not very high priority in a lot of cases.
Yeah, they just look in more candid.
They just want they do it as a part of their profession every day. So for them, the brief also is very they don't want to stand and pose. They just want to enjoy the wedding and you capture as it is. I think this is this has been in terms of, and that changes our approach in certain way because our style is a mix of documentary and editorial. If I have to put it, the exact words are we try to merge the documentary style of shooting a wedding along with an editorial kind of look to the whole to it, and it changes for each wedding.
Okay.
Some people prioritize editorial style, some people prioritize documentary style, and it changes for each couple. We have a discussion, we ask them what are their preferences, and based on that we do this math of how can we shift from one approach to another.
I've worked with you and your team a few times, and something I really appreciate that you all as a company do is a very detailed recce. I mean, I know your team even times the sunset and says we make sure that this is the time that the bride is walking, which is, I think, very important. So I want to touch upon prep. How important you think is prep, and what is the kind of prep a photography team does?
See, the wedding, it's not just a celebration; it's a project. I think you will know that there are a lot of things involved, a lot of people involved, and planning. Whether you are capturing moments, but still, the planning lies at the core of ensuring that you will get good photos. And it is our sort of job to educate everybody that okay, see, this will work, this is the time. For example, a lot of times people say we want to do sunset wedding, sundowner, but the sundowner doesn't mean it has to start at 6. And a lot of weddings, we did initially, the sundowner starts at 6, but by 6 the wedding starts, it gets dark. So it's our job to educate that, your eyes might see a sun going down at 6, but for camera, it starts at 5. So doing a good recce of the place, of the timing, the sunset, the direction of the sun, and whatever it takes to ensure that the the bride or the family get the best photos. Recce usually involves going through the schedule. I think that probably for us is most important.
Yeah.
And ensuring that the schedule is correct.
Yeah.
A lot of times, from a photography point of view, like for example, as a planner, you can plan 10 things, but it might not be perfect or ideal from a photography point of view.
Correct. To be able to schedule what you need to deliver.
So I think that, working around that aspect of, that schedule is right. Even in some cases, shifting the whole, I think in Athiya's wedding, we shifted the whole.
Athiya and
in Athiya's wedding, we shifted the whole Mandap only, last minute.
Really?
A day before. And I still remember, we were thinking, and me and Joseph were shooting, and the direction of the Mandap was, not ideal for the sunset, because the timing and the sun was, it was such a, a situation where the sun will fall directly on the faces, and we wanted it to be a bit behind them. So we shifted the whole Mandap actually just a day before, and required some convincing to both Athiya and the decorator as well, the planner. But and Shaadi squad was doing.
I know. I was just gonna say.
Yeah, and we sort of convinced. But see, these kind of decision making, I think it's our job.
Yeah.
Even in terms of color coordination, in terms of decor, we don't make decisions as such on these choices, but we do have recommendations. Like, okay, if you do this, like this kind of color might not work. Like sometimes, for example, if a bride is wearing a red lehenga, then the decor has to be a bit, adjusted based on what you're wearing. So these kind of recommendation, I think it all is part of the prep work that we do, getting as much detail as possible about the family, about their background, about their taste in, usually check the Instagrams also.
You interact, you started by saying you like to choose your clients, and that's great.
Initially. Not now.
Now.
Initially, I was in a very different zone.
Yeah.
Now we do not have that freedom, like to say no to a wedding. We don't say no. The only reason why we will say no is if you're not available.
Okay.
Or the budgets don't match, but there is no third reason to say no. But at that time, I was, different,
You were adjusting to the industry, let's put it that way. I think you probably wanted to make sure that you are stepping in right and keep your happy space intact,
So it was more about my happy space.
Yeah.
That, these kind of weddings, I want these kind of weddings, I want this. So I was choosing based on, because I used to get a lot of inquiries.
Yeah.
And so I had to make some selection. So I was very selective, to be very honest, very, very selective. A lot of times brides have to, they used to contact some planners or some people, and they used to call me, can you do our wedding? It has happened. Now we are not that selective. Yeah. Now we have our selection criteria is purely, first come, first serve. And if the dates match or the budgets match, there's no selection.
Couples have this thing about they want that one moment to go viral, which is a big ask nowadays.
Thankfully, no one has ever asked.
Never?
No.
Yeah?
No one has ever asked.
Because they probably have the faith that you will click something that's going to go viral.
See, to be very honest, I have not heard the word viral from any of our brides. I've never received a demand that, oh, we're gonna do this, it will go viral, or
we want to be active on social media.
Yeah, I've never, usually, if that discussion usually happens before, and we are very clear with it that we don't make reels, and we still don't make reels specifically for Instagram or with a specific purpose of going viral. We don't do that. So if you're expecting any of that, we can't do that. So we are very clear with it. And I'm assuming, since we have never received a demand, people understand that we do not shoot to make something viral. If it goes viral, we have no hand in it. We don't change our style, or we don't put like, okay, we have to make it viral, so we put an extra effort. We have never done that.
And nor have you come across couples who've asked that?
Never. We've never received a demand also, okay, can you do this for us and it'll go viral, but it never happened to us.
And what's your take on this entire social media hype today? Like where they don't probably want something to go viral, but they are wanting to pick something which is seen and want to replicate it.
That happens
a lot.
That happens, especially a lot of people are inspired by the celebrity.
Yeah, so they tell you that give me that same Kiara moment, or give me that kind of a. I mean,
actually, that happened. No, they don't tell. But I'll tell you that sometimes, for example, when we are taking a photo, they will automatically go in that pose.
Yeah.
And I tell them, okay, this has been done. Because what Kiara, that was not a pose. It was a ceremony.
Yeah.
But when you do it for photo, then it becomes pose. And that doesn't work very well. If it happens organically, it's fine. Those moments, the reason why those specific moments become viral or whatever, because they're authentic. Trying to chase something which was very authentic, I don't think it will result in.
How do you handle a situation like that?
I say no. I said no. I remember a few years back, again I was in that zone, that saying no and yes based on, I remember I met a bride and she said, Sid, I want to take a photograph. I said, yeah, I'll take. Okay, I want to take a photograph with my chodi and my face is seen. I can't take that. And she said, but why? I said, no, but this is a very cliche pose. Like if it's a pose, then I'll tell you what to pose.
Yeah.
Because I want this. I told, I'll take it from phone. I'll not take from my camera. So I took from my phone. And I explained that, like, because as a photographer, the reason you chose me, why I'm here, is because I have a certain style. I have a certain, I have to make certain decisions, that are true to my style and my way of working.
Absolutely.
And I think conveying that to a couple, it's again my duty. So I told her very politely, if you want, I'll take it. I'll take it on my phone. But it's just, this is not my style.
Yeah.
So politely, I
didn't make her cry, no, Sid.
I didn't make her cry at all. She understood.
Yeah.
See, I try to, I would have taken it anyways.
Yeah.
If she would have still, insisted, I would have taken it. But again, it was my job to tell, because I'm a photographer and I have a way of working. And like, for example, same, like if a bride asks me, okay, can you make a reel for me? I'll politely say no, because it's not something that falls in my portfolio or the way I work.
Yeah.
So I have to tell. Even if they insist, I'll do.
Yeah.
But my job is to clarify that this is not something I do.
True. You've done a lot of work in the fashion and couture space also.
Yeah.
You've collaborated, and I know you've done work with Tarun Tahiliani.
Yeah.
I met you at a shoot once with Abu Sandeep.
Yeah.
You were doing Sonam shoot over there.
Yeah.
And then you've done with Arpita Mehta,
Yeah.
and maybe many others, I don't know. Which space, I mean, is it a refreshing change at times to do that? And what do you think of that space? Do you enjoy that space a lot more? And is it just another job that you're doing?
I think it's a very refreshing break from what we do.
Yeah.
And the only reason why we do it is because we've been doing 10 weddings. And if you get something like this, not fashion, let's say outside fashion also, if somebody says, I have this, weird idea. We have done. So we do, if anything interesting comes, we do purely because it just helps us break the,
monotony.
I won't say monotony but it's still, your creative flow, because you're now focused on wedding, and then suddenly a fashion comes. Partially because our style is also inspired by fashion, and that it helps us to apply to weddings as well.
Oh, nice.
Because fashion and weddings, we are heading to a place where there's a good
I agree.
Sort of a merge happening between fashion and, and weddings. So these are not very separate kind of, two separate fields. And it helps us to have experience in both. And I think initially I was confused why people even ask us to do fashion. We are not fashion photographers. There are hundreds of fashion photographers. And then I thought it met maybe because our experience in shooting weddings gives a slightly different perspective on fashion, a bit different take on fashion, because I think there's an added layer of emotions. Even when we do a fashion, there is a thin layer of emotion.
How do you bring that?
I think it's the way, because we have been dealing with real
because,
people.
Because, in a wedding, emotions naturally happen. But
True.
In fashion, you probably will have to brief them to...
Correct, but there are stories, because we have experience with stories. One, we have experience with real people and how to deal with them, how to, even when it comes to posing, because weddings is not just moments. Wedding is a mix of, posing, staging, and then the
raw
thing, the raw emotion. So there are a lot of things that go on in a wedding.
Yeah.
Actually, wedding is a mix of a lot of different photography.
That's
it's
true.
Fashion, wildlife, all.
Wildlife?
Yeah. Because, I'll tell you.
Wildlife?
Yeah, because in wildlife, you like, for example, if you go on a safari somewhere and you have to wait.
Yeah.
The amount of patience you need to have while you're doing wildlife to get that one single shot. I think that patience applies to weddings. That developing
Great analogy.
Yeah, I mean that
I
developing.
I never heard of that before, but I'm so impressed with what I heard.
Because see, there's there's street photography where you develop an eye for capturing compositions and moments in street. Then there's fashion where there's a there's a style, there's a way of the composing things, the beauty of it. And wildlife is the patience of waiting for the right moment.
Correct.
That is something you get from when you're shooting wildlife. And wedding is a mix of all. And I feel that experience probably helps us in fashion. And we have been very honored, that some of biggest name in the industries, they Abu Jani or Tarun Tahiliani, and we enjoy a lot. It's much easier than normal wedding because everything is set.
Yeah, I think it's a more controlled environment.
And there are people who are specialists. A lot of things you're served. There are models who will do. You don't have to explain to them. So I find it a lot easier. I mean, maybe I'm not doing at that level. We're not like proper fashion photographers. But I find fashion to be a lot easier than weddings, because in weddings you're dealing with real people most of them who can't pose and who are awkward in front of the camera, and it's your job to how to make it still look beautiful and organic, even though they feel awkward. And that is quite a task. It requires some experience. It's not easy, and so I find it a bit difficult. Weddings a bit difficult. Fashion, I enjoy fashion a lot.
I also think people you capture in fashion are more used to the camera, and they are more confident in front of the camera, and there's a very different it's a different confidence they portray.
It's very that's why it's very easy. But most of the fashion campaigns we have done, we usually try to put a similar storyline, so that something going on, not like two models posing for something. Whenever we get that opportunity to be the creative, in that creative zone, because a lot of times this creative work is done by another team, and we are told that, okay, this is the whole idea behind this fashion, this is how you will do. But in other campaigns, we are given total freedom. That okay, you do whatever you want. And then, like for example, Tarun Tahiliani fashion, it was bridal, and we thought, okay, let's do it a real wedding. There's few kind of, we were able to. Obviously, there was an art director, but still we had freedom to create images by putting a storyline and let them do their own thing. Obviously, they're models, so they'll do it much easier for them. But still, having a slight storyline, even in Abu Jani, we were able to put a storyline together, and so it's very refreshing for us.
Lovely.
Very, very refreshing.
Every wedding isn't smooth, Sid. We know this. And what's that one thing or story that you have where things weren't smooth at all, and you all had to do a lot of salvage operation, and you got things under control, and that's something you'd like to tell us?
I have a story actually. Usually I don't tell stories from weddings, but I'll tell you, it's a long time back. Initially, when the couple came, I said no to their wedding, initially.
And why? Why did you say no?
I can't tell the reason, but again, because I felt this is not my style.
Okay.
It was very traditional wedding, and I thought it's not my style.
Okay.
And I told her that, it's not my style, and then they came back with a planner, and I knew the planner. So the planner arranged a meeting. I didn't know that they were the same couple. And the planner arranged, I have a client, meet them. I went and met. Then I came to know it's the same couple who I said no. And the bride was from US and the guy was from Hyderabad. And the wedding was in Tirupati. And so the bride sold her wedding, like, said, you have to do this wedding. It's a beautiful wedding. It's on a rooftop. There are mountains in the backdrop. And she explained, her design, her ideas in terms of what she's planning. And she's explained, the stationery she's going to be using and some personalizations on the cloth and all. Like very detailed kind of a pitch she gave. And I said, okay.
I love this bride giving a pitch saying you have to shoot my...
And I said, okay, I'll do the wedding. And then what happened when we reached at the wedding? So the wedding was on the rooftop, and in that building every floor there was one wedding happening. So Tirupati is like that. If you've been to Tirupati, so there's a building, and every wedding one floor will have one wedding, and it was a crowd and a mess. And so the bride went upstairs before her entry to take a peek at how things are. And she went there and she started crying. She came down, she locked herself in the car and she said, I'm not getting married.
What?
And we went, me and Vivek, I think if you know Vivek, so me and Vivek, we went and we saw, and it was very bad. From what she explained, that her vision, it was a disaster. There were construction stuff kept right behind her, Mandap, there was construction stuff, full, those pillars and,
the trussing
and everything was kept open. Open.
Oh.
And the tent was very old style, like village tent, and the chairs were plastic. And she was explaining the chairs, the design of the chairs and all initially, and they were just plastic chairs. And it was a complete mess. And she cried and she locked herself in the car. And she said, I'm not getting married. And imagine, everything is set, the groom is ready, everything is set, and she came down and she sat, and it was all dirty. And me and Vivek, we went up, and along with the bride's brother, we swept the floor with three of us. We swept the floor. I covered the background with a cloth, because we cannot move. It was too much stuff, so you cannot move them. So I bought a cloth. I covered the whole stuff with a cloth, and we removed the tent, one side of the tent which was looking bad, and we swept everything and we made it clean. I took a photo. And I went, and she locked herself. Nobody was allowed to come in also. She was crying inside the car sitting. And I went to her, I told, we have cleaned. And she said, what? Whenever, I told her that, see, I can assure, that you will get good photos. Whatever we could have done, we did. We cleaned it, we removed it, and all that. I showed her a photo. See, it's clean.
Yeah.
And I can assure you, you'll get good photos. And she took another half an hour to, probably come to terms with what her situation, and then she agreed. And then she entered, and the wedding happened. And actually we got good photos, surprisingly, because we changed the way, because since it was not that clean, so we shot from lower angle. So the whole wedding we shot while sitting down. Instead, usually you shoot like this, but we shot like this so that the background is not visible and you see only mountains.
Wow.
And we shot, but yeah,
I'm sure the groom has to thank you for life.
I also hope so. I hope so, but that never happened. But yeah, I hope so.
But what a story this is, yeah. I mean, what all things we do in weddings.
Weddings, like initially, in the first few years, there are a lot of stories.
Yeah.
Because mostly there were no planners.
Yeah.
Because there were
What year did you start, Sid?
I started this is 10th year.
Oh, this is your 10th
year.
Yeah. I started, my company is also as much as 10 years old. I know, it's a more evolving industry.
Yeah.
So it's just been a decade old, all we can say, in an organized way.
The organized way, 10 years back, things started taking shape.
It was just about taking shape.
Yeah.
No, I know what you mean, but this is a crazy story.
Yeah. There are a lot of crazy stories.
But after the pictures came out, was she very happy?
She was very happy. I showed her photos in the evening itself.
Oh.
Like once her wedding was done, there was a reception in the evening, and she came back. I quickly went back. I edited few. I went and showed her, and she was very happy with the photos.
Do you sit through all the editing yourself? Now, of course, I'm sure you have a large team, but...
now not possible, but
But it passes through you. Everything passes.
Not everything. Now we have a solid team.
Yeah.
That it doesn't require my constant lookout for. I don't see everything. I don't review everything, but sometimes I do see, especially the tricky ones.
Yeah.
I personally see that things are right.
Yeah.
It's quite a challenging task.
Yeah.
Running a creative company with creatives and a big creative company. So occasionally I do go through stuff.
Also, the iconic Nykaa Wali Shaadi.
Yeah.
Tell us that now. Tell us that story.
See, before Nykaa Wali Shaadi, we were approached for few OTT shows. And we said no to a lot of shows. But when Nykaa Wali Shaadi came, the name, it was Tiger Baby, and I'm a big fan of Zoya Akhtar. So when I saw Zoya's name, you have to think about it. And the difference, I think what was different with Nykaa Wali Shaadi, that most of the shows that came before were more focused on the wedding itself.
Yeah.
The prep part, the celebration part. But the Nykaa Wali Shaadi, when it came, it was more about the story. That was very interesting. And one of the reasons why we took up also that. And even though it was a branded kind of a film and there was some brand integration happening, but still at the core was the story. It was not the celebration, it was not the makeup,
process of planning and...
So I found that as,
appealing.
It's my space.
Yeah.
So, and it was a learning experience, to be very honest. It was quite a learning experience. We didn't choose the weddings. One of the weddings was our wedding, but other 3 weddings, they only chose. And it was quite an experience, actually. Learning, I would say, quite a learning experience. But yeah.
How much time did you devote to that?
See, it was probably a month, I would say.
Yeah.
A month, because maybe more, because we were part of the editing process also. A lot of times I also edited, because I'm an editor at heart. I started as an editor.
Yeah, that's what you...
So I have this thing, even though I was not supposed to be involved with editing, I really, that took a lot more time. But yeah, it was quite a learning experience, because you're dealing with a lot of people, a lot of brands, and having that balance and achieving that between commercial and the art part of it. Quite a learning experience.
Amazing. What a story. I mean, what a journey it has been. I mean, I did not know this whole thing about the circumstantial, shift of career and getting into weddings. Every great chapter has a next step. What's next for House on the Clouds, and what is it that you envisage your brand and you doing in the next 5 years,
Actually, we are working on a lot of things.
Yeah. Something that you can tell us.
I feel in the wedding space, because right now we are in the process of scaling up.
Yeah.
So from a business owner point of view, there's a lot of work in setting up processes and making sure the company itself runs on auto mode without my intervention, like hiring the right people. I always, I'm the least talented person in the company, and my job is to make sure this equation stays. Like I always want to be the least talented, and that itself is taking a lot of time.
Yeah, that takes a time in our space, clearly, because I think that's a struggle with a lot of brands.
Yeah.
The entire ecosystem, I think all of us struggle, because our names are so attached to our brands, and people feel that your presence is extremely important. How do you manage that, and how are you making that shift?
It takes a lot of time, because in the end, it's about finding the right people.
Yeah.
And making sure all of us together as a collective have a same goal. And that takes a lot of time, because a lot of people come from very different backgrounds, especially when it comes to weddings.
How do you hire talent, Sid? I'd like to understand that.
It's a very long process.
Yeah.
Very, very long process. Some people I hire because they just landed in front of my office. I hired one person, and on one Sunday, when the office was closed, I went to office and there was a guy standing outside with a cake, with a pastry, magnolia pastry, and he was just standing. And I was like, are you waiting for somebody? And office was still closed. I was about to open. And he said, yeah, I'm waiting for you. And I was like,
scary.
It's a Sunday, the office is closed.
Yeah.
And since how long have you been waiting? And I don't go to office, like I came just randomly. And he said, yeah, I'm waiting here for 30 minutes. And I said, okay, you are hired. Because I felt like...
But on a Sunday, how would he expect you to just come there?
And that's why I hired him, because I thought, what are the odds of finding
he could have waited till
Yeah, Monday. I mean, like I sort of placed a bet on his luck. That he came out of nowhere and I ended up coming to office.
Is he yet in the office?
Yeah, still.
Yeah, doing well?
Yeah. We hired him. And see, some of the hiring decisions are like this, very random. And you see a face and you find like, okay, I like this. And most of the time I hire people who are like me. So if you see most of, HOTC, they're all like me. They are all, shy, they're not like nerds. A lot of us are, sometimes I hire people purely to, who are opposite to me, so I can,
Yeah, you have a balance, you create a balance.
Fill that gap. And, but a lot of times these decisions are very, very intuitive. Like it's just...
Yeah, intuitive, and I'm sure you kind of the relate here, and the story here is that how passionate is somebody and how's their work, and, I'm sure...
See, passion and work come very late.
Really?
Yeah. I when I see a person, if he's a good person, like that's, if I see him and I speak to him, he's a good person, for me...
That's important.
I'll teach him how to work.
Love.
I feel the person has to be good.
Yeah.
And in wedding space, I mean, to be very honest, art is thing, but more important than art or the craft part of it is how you make others feel of your presence.
Yeah.
Your presence has to be very sort of subtle and very pleasant.
Yeah.
So I usually hire based on that, and I can get work done.
Makes sense.
Because it's not rocket science, to be very honest, and you can learn on the job. But what is important is that for a bride, for a couple, for the family, the person has to feel right. That is, if you met Ashwin, you will know.
Of course.
A lot of these decisions are based on that. Is he a good person?
Yeah.
Is,
giving that comfort to the family and...
how he speaks. And, And so my hiring decisions are purely based on...
and what's your equation in the company of female employees versus male employees?
Oh, obviously, this is not perfect, but very difficult to hire, to be very honest. I usually prefer female photographers, and we have had female photographers before. We still have 3-4 people working, but it's a bit difficult to hire. One is because most of people who work for HOTC are from outside, and
they're not necessarily from the city.
They're not from the city, and a lot of these females shifting to a new city alone doesn't fit very well.
Okay.
So that is probably one of the reasons. But we are aiming, hopefully. It's very difficult to hire a female. I feel they are much strong for this profession. They have a much more better their role, the way they deal with brides is much more.
I think in general, the female touch on weddings it's somewhere connect. Like even I think whether it's a planner or a designer or from any space of the ecosystem, I think females fit the bill a little better.
Definitely.
Or, they, because there's an emotional connect that's naturally something that comes to them about planning, comforting, dealing with family and talking the nuances and every detail, and working around it.
Yeah, and also you can see in the photographs. If you see, for example, when a bride is getting ready, if you see a photograph of a bride getting ready, when a female photographer is shooting, it's completely different.
Really?
You will see her smiling in the camera all the time, talking to that female photographer, because there is a sense of comfort, especially when she's getting ready.
Yeah,
because
that's a
that
very
can
important
be
one.
And the best moments actually come when the bride is getting ready.
Yeah.
And usually we, as a male, we get to enter that room very late.
Yeah.
But a female photographer can get there a bit earlier. And so she has a better chances. Plus the kind of, the presence is not very awkward.
Yeah.
I usually prefer having, and also somehow I think they are better in capturing moments. We have few female photographers, and if you see the photos, there's a certain sense of the storytelling or that emotion is slightly better as compared to.
Clearly, you have to hire more.
Yeah, definitely. Suggest few people.
Super. We've had such a great time chatting with you. We have a segment called the Pink Frame Moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to spin this. It's a fun spin and we're going to give you a few questions. You got to just answer by saying roll or retake.
Okay. Roll as in? Roll is?
Roll as in we go ahead or retake.
Okay.
You know, so these questions, I'll toss 2 scenarios of a wedding and you can tell us that whether you want to go ahead. No overthinking, just, you know, we just go with the flow.
Yeah.
Editing till 4 a.m. to a perfect wedding trailer or waking up at 4 a.m. for a golden hour drone shot?
Roll. I'll answer that. Definitely editing till 4 a.m. I am not a morning person. I actually sleep at 4 a.m. And
the 4 a.m. club in a different way.
Yeah, I sleep at 4 a.m. and definitely any day I'll prefer sitting and editing till 4 a.m. which I actually do every day.
Yeah.
Every day. Yesterday also I slept at 4 to come here at this time.
Shooting a celebrity wedding with full NDA or shooting a no pressure wedding in the middle of nowhere?
I mean, can the answer be both? Because, or you have to choose only? I would say both.
Both?
One, because like obviously a celebrity wedding, irrespective of NDA or not, a celebrity wedding and shooting in the middle, I would prefer. I love doing a lot of, not me, any wedding photographer would love to have, you know, both.
Yeah.
To do both. It's a, you know, I would not prefer having only celebrities all the time. I will not have only certain kind of weddings all the time. So I would still take both. I'm a very, you know, greedy kind of photographer. I want everything.
You want it all.
I want small weddings, I want big weddings, I want international weddings, I want local weddings, I want village weddings. So in that way I'm very greedy. I want everything.
Yeah. A couple who's deeply in love but camera shy or a couple who's camera ready but scripted?
Role, I would prefer a couple who are shy and because I think I connect with them more. It's much more work to work with them in terms of getting the shots. But in the end, I feel that, you know, the process of getting a photo from a couple who are camera shy, it's fun.
Yeah.
You have to, you know, you cannot just ask them, go there and stand and pose. There's a process to it, there's an activity.
Yeah.
You have to create stuff.
So and as they warm up to the camera and you feel so good about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's so natural and organic, the photo. Even though I would still do, you know, couple who pose. But when you're dealing with this couple, it just feels, I feel more connected because I am awkward in front of camera.
Yeah.
Like, I'm super awkward.
Yeah.
I don't like to, I've never seen anything of me, like I hate posting my photos. I'm not very camera, friendly. So I connect with couple more and I understand also to some extent that, and also what can be done to make them comfortable. Yeah. I like that.
Shooting a destination wedding in Jaipur again or exploring an unknown venue with no lighting plan?
Role, definitely shooting a wedding with no light plan, unknown place. It's actually more than, you know, one is obviously because it's an unknown, that itself makes it interesting. Lighting or no lighting doesn't matter. I mean, we have short weddings with candles also, so that doesn't matter. Why we are doing this is also to have experiences of our own. You know, one is obviously you're working for somebody, but your personal satisfaction, for your personal motivation, having new experiences, going to new places, meeting new people, shooting in tougher situations. This is all part of the experiences. I feel that is why.
I think we are blessed to be in this industry. Yeah. I really feel that there's so many more perks of being in the space we are, connecting with different people, with different stories, going to some of the best places at times.
Definitely.
You know, it can be stressful and draining in certain parts, but the perks are great.
I mean, in some places, I'll tell you one example. Like, I was shooting a wedding in Dubai. Not even one Indian. It was all Arabic wedding.
Arabic wedding.
And at that time I felt like, how can, like, there cannot be a better profession. Like, you are in a place where you are an important person, you are getting that respect, plus you are experiencing something, seeing something you've never seen before.
Yeah.
You know, I had this, you know, like a
goosebumps
kind of a reaction when I was at that wedding. The kind of culture.
Yeah.
You don't get, you know, even if you travel, like even if you travel to so many places, you don't get
to the world, but you might not be invited to an Arabic wedding.
Mostly, likely you will never experience things like that.
Yeah.
And I stood there and I told, you know, my team was like, how can there be a profession better than this? You're like, every day you are experiencing something new, something, and you get to capture it, you're creating something. I think it's blessed. As a wedding, this space, that's why it's very difficult to leave and go anywhere else.
Yeah, yeah.
Because briefly I wanted to make films, I wanted to do this and that. But it's very difficult to sort of, you know, leave the wedding space.
I know of a lot of entrepreneurs in our space who've expanded into doing other things. But deep down in their heart, you know, the wedding space is always alive and they'd always like to do that. It's not easy to
it's not easy.
Hang your boots, you know, in this space.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, Siddharth, for letting us into your world and,
Thank you.
You know, and telling us so many untold stories. And I know it's not easy for get you to talk and open up like that. So we are grateful that you made it to our show.
Thank you, my pleasure.
To all the audience who's watching, please do visit this beautiful page of House on the Clouds. You can't be missing to see some great captures and see how you can actually live through beautiful moments in pictures. And we'll come back soon with next storyteller and with more inspiration in our next episode. Thank you. Hope you've liked this episode. If you have, don't just give us a thumbs up, but hit the subscribe button so you can get notifications for all the upcoming episodes. And do watch for great stories, for a lot of wedding information, and share it with all your friends. Thank you.